Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. Keep letting us know in the chat where everyone's from. So great to see everyone. Hey, Bridget. Welcome to all of our attendees and our panelists for the beginning of the very first Women in Music Summit. We're so excited to get to do this. If you're a member already, you know that we do weekly, if not more, webinars now that we're in this virtual space. So a lot of great programming, but we're so excited to get to do it in 3-day sessions with some really incredible speakers and leaders and activists and artists and creators and executives. So we are just so great that you're here. We're so happy that you're here. We're so happy that we have some exciting women in music leaders from around the world joining us for our first event of the summit. For those of you who may not be as familiar with WIM, we were founded originally in 1985 in New York, and now we're in our 36th year in service to the industry, and we have chapters all around the world, all over the country, from LA to India. So I am so excited to introduce Nita Raghuwanshi, who, hey, Nita, who was not only a former WIM president, but is kind of what I think of as our WIM ambassador around the world. She has spread the WIM mission all over the place and has been so integral in the expansion that we've seen and the growth of the organization. And Nita today is going to talk to some of our leaders from chapters all over the world. We were hoping to have our WIM Japan team with us, but unfortunately with the time difference, it wasn't doable today, but we do have some exciting groups within the WIM chapter community and also our partners in WIM Canada as well. So Nita, our board director, secretary, co-chair of global chapter expansion, thank you for kicking off this summit today, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our incredible panelists.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. You're a fabulous president, and we're so honored to have you here. Thanks for that introduction. So hello, everyone. I am Nita Raghuwanshi, Global Co-Chair of Chapter Expansion for Women in Music. And I'm very excited to get a chance for you all to meet some of our leaders from our different chapters around the world and hear a little bit about them and their chapters and their activity. So I first of all want to give a shout out to my fellow co-chair of Chapter Expansion, Bridget Perdomo, who is, I think online with us on the chat. And I'm so happy to be honored to be able to work with her as we have been sort of working through the past years to branch out from what was originally back in the 80s, a New York centric small nonprofit organization to growing and growing through the United States and then abroad. And it's been quite a journey, and we love the idea of collecting all of us women from around the globe and our male allies to be able to empower us, to be able to grow our businesses and careers and tap into our global network, to be able to make sure that we're able to cross-pollinate in that sense and help each other out on a global level. It is amazing to find out about all our different markets, and there are definitely some very common threads of how our music industry, where there gender equality in our music industry, where our issues and challenges are in fact very common. Our numbers, our data may be different, but there's definitely a common thread, and there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of help and support to be provided. So we're happy to be able to continue to grow and to engage with these amazing women in our markets. So I will actually be taking this in a certain order. I did want to sort of encourage everyone, our audience out here, to put your comments and ideas in the chat box. And since we can't be here together in person, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Don't be shy. I see some great introductions here already, and so continue that. If you do have a question for our panelists, please put that into the Q&A. Into that Q&A section of the Zoom on the bottom of your screen, and we'll hopefully get to all the questions. So I'd love to kick this off by introducing you to our newest chapter chair, who is, and there we have Jenny, I'll introduce in a second. Women in Music in the UK. It had a bit of a history where we had a lovely partner there of Help Musicians UK, and it launched as Women in Music Great Britain and Women in Music Northern Ireland. And after a variety of different things, we decided to sort of start again a little bit and create more of a WIM UK for a more cohesive chapter. And there's lots of amazing women's organizations in the UK. And so, hopefully to be able to engage and pull together a lot of those groups eventually. So the fabulous Jenny McGregor. I'd like to introduce you to Jenny. She by day hails from the fabulous label Universal. And Jenny, I'm going to let you just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and tell us about your chapter, and we'll take it from there and do our round table around the Zoom as we go.
Thanks, Nita. Oh, I'm really, really pleased to be here. As Nita said, I'm from Universal Music. I work in process innovation. So I'm part of a team that kind of, any time we have to respond to changes in the marketplace, or we want to improve the way that we're looking after artist data, anything like that, we're the team that gets thrown at it. So it's a really satisfying and fulfilling place to be working, I have to say. And I'm really pleased about WIM UK, the relaunch, the fact that it's a wholly WIM initiative. We've got already loads of stuff in the pipeline. Looking at a webinar series that will, I hope, get some real momentum going up until the summer. We're hoping to have a WIM hosted streaming event to showcase some of the UK talent. Super excited about that. And yeah, and then just generally getting some momentum going. So looking forward to hearing from everyone who wants to get involved. So Nita, shall I introduce Helena then?
Yes, actually. Go
okay, cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So actually, we're really lucky because instead of me talking just about the UK, Helena Kosinski has very, very kindly offered to give us actually an overview of the global marketplace. Helena works at MRC Entertainment, which you may know more as what was formerly Nielsen's, and heads up, she's a VP of MRC Data Global, so really spearheads the whole global data business. And so, yeah, Helena, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you, Nita. Thank you, WIM, for allowing me to present to you today. As Jenny said, I am going to present a very brief overview of what's going on in the global music landscape. We've got the whole world to cover in about 10 minutes. So I will be quick. Just a bit of an overview of what we do. We were Nielsen Music. MRC acquired the company at the end of 2019, and we measure music consumption. You may know us mostly as the body that powers the Billboard charts in the US and Canada and now globally. We also do a bunch of research around who the audience is for music, who the fan is, consumer insights, and then we work with brands and media in that kind of experiential space as well. And what I want to do in the next couple of minutes is talk a bit about 2020 and what happened, and the fact that it's thankfully in the rearview mirror. And then also talk a bit about what we expect or what we think you should be looking out for in 2021. And obviously, if we were sat here at the beginning of 2020 and I tried to predict 2020, we could never have got it right. So there's a big caveat. None of us know what's going to happen, but some trends that we're seeing emerging, which I think will be very interesting. So we measure and track streaming from all around the world, from providers such as Spotify and Amazon and Apple, YouTube. We're capturing that data daily, and we have done for a number of years now. So I'm very pleased to say that global on-demand audio streaming is zooming up almost 23% year on year. over 2 trillion streams globally. So phenomenal numbers, as I'm sure we're all aware in parts of our business. And the pandemic really changed that, certainly in some countries. And I'll come to that in a minute. Digital song sales, that is declining, which is, again, a trend that we've seen for many years. When it comes to where that growth is coming from, when it comes to where that growth is coming from, on this slide here, there are 2 lists of countries. On the left-hand side, you've got the larger global countries that have seen the biggest audio streaming growth in 2020. And on the right-hand side, you've got some of the smaller markets but have seen massive growth. And I think these are fascinating lists. Japan, by far the country that saw the biggest streaming growth from 19 to 20. And I think really driven by the pandemic and the closure of record stores and the moving of a lot of what was physical purchasing in that market online, seeing similar sorts of trends in Germany as well. On the right-hand side, I love the fact that we're seeing countries like Thailand in that list. I think there's a lot of growth and potential in some of those really quite large, very youth-populated countries in Southeast Asia. But really, growth across the board. Back in September of 2020, we launched with Billboard the first ever global charts. So there are 2. There's one global from all the streaming all around the world. And then there's one that excludes US consumption, just takes a look at the rest of the world. And these are fantastic. They're the first ever charts that showcase streaming coming from multiple providers. And some of the trends that we're seeing on those charts, Puerto Rico, US territory, obviously, but is really phenomenally popular. Artists from that market are phenomenally popular on charts. When it comes to songs in multiple languages, we are definitely seeing more and more of that. Interestingly, you're unlikely to chart if your song does not have some English in there. But, be that Spanish and English or Korean and English, we're really seeing those multilingual songs do very, very well. And then from a global perspective, really the US is still the key, the biggest, the most important market around the world. And there are very few songs that make it big globally without making it also in the US or getting a significant chunk of streams in the US. However, there are some artists that do make it onto global charts without that, predominantly from Japan, but also we saw the other week two artists from Argentina as well. Next couple of slides, I want to run through picking a couple of countries and looking a bit deeper into what we've seen in some of the research that we've done. So firstly, Japan, I think, again, a really interesting market, very much now shifting, moving digital, very unique. We see here the top genres where J-pop is obviously the number one genre, but classical music does very well, as does jazz. Even music from anime films, really very, very popular. Western pop is in that list as well, but really a very unique marketplace. On to Germany. In Germany, radio is still the predominant form of music listening overall. However, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, when it comes to teenagers and millennials, so the younger, anyone under the age of 40, really it's streaming that is the predominant way of consuming music. And again, Germany was in that list of the top markets we saw that had streaming growth. We're seeing that that adoption of streaming really push Germany up. In France, there is a big love for French music. So we see that 80% of music listeners in France listen to French pop music, 85% listen to variété française. Obviously, US and North American artists also do very well, but I think driven by a very strong local French language and culture and radio quotas really means that French music does very well in France. Over to Italy, when we look at Italian teenagers and millennials, they have very different music habits in terms of what they like to listen to. Teenagers on the rap hip hop track, whilst millennials very much more on the kind of dance, house, indie music listening. So in every market, there are real nuances when it comes to music listening. We may be a global place, but we do all differ, but on a country level. So in the US and all around the world, we saw in 2020 a massive growth of TikTok. 58% of people will stream short video clips online, and that's predominantly TikTok, although there are other platforms out there. And we know that that's been a massive driver of music and music consumption in 2020. We took a look at a specific song. We've actually done this on a couple of songs, but this is Deathbed by Powfu. What we see here is we see the kind of the trend on a week by week basis on audio streaming, that blue line. We see there when that song started to go viral on TikTok, the impact that had on streaming outside of the TikTok platform. It had a bigger impact on this song than the artist releasing their EP. So TikTok is really a massive promotional tool for artists, if you can make your song go viral, which is a big if. So looking ahead to 2021, what are we expecting? 4 trends that I want to talk about. New hot genres. What are we expecting from streaming? Country music, more specifically in the US, and the rise of visual media and the continued rise of that. So Afropop. We are seeing, and in the surveys that we do, we're seeing that this is one of those genres that 2021 may be the year where we have a lot more music coming out of Africa and being big on that global stage, which I think is fascinating and exciting. 11% of US music consumers said in a very recent survey we did that they listened to Afropop in the past 2 weeks. So that's pretty massive. It's still niche, but it has the potential, I think, to be much, much bigger. Streaming will absolutely continue to increase in 2021. Like I said, or like I showed, global audio streams had a 23% increase year on year. US US audio streams had a 17% increase. It's continues to rise. We fully expect, or we think, that we will hit 1 trillion streams in the US by the end of 2021. When it comes to genres, country music did very well in 2020, a 15% growth in average weekly streams. Latin music also did very, very well last year. Pop music, not so well. I think partly we saw a lot of release schedules shifted because of the pandemic, and that has impacted pop music. But I think country very much, there was a move from country music listeners from listening to country music on the radio, in the car, to more at home and more on streaming services. And that really contributed to that increase in country music. And I think those audience habits that we saw change in 2020 will continue through 21. When it comes to visual media, we have seen both the rise of TikTok and short form video, but we also, of course, saw a shift to live music, from live music, to live streaming music. And that is something that, about quarter of the US population are doing. And so it's not exactly mainstream, but it is a big part of the consumer's music consumption landscape now. And people very much like to tune in if the artist is debuting new music and if they're performing some of their top hits and old favorites. Hopefully 2021 will see some return to live events. Fingers crossed that we have vaccine rollout and a safer environment. And, you know, one of the challenges for the industry in 2021 is going to be, what does that return look like? And what is going to make people comfortable in attending a live event in the future? So mask wearing, temperature checks, outdoor venues, we expect to see all of that. And we're already seeing a bit of that. So we've had drive-in events in the US, especially events in pods. So that Summer Sounds Festival is in Australia, where they have a better handle, some would say, on COVID, and it's the summertime over there as well. And they have had a festival where people have been in gated areas, or we might see events where the audiences are bubbles, like in this Flaming Lips, arguably PR event, but they did do a live gig where they had their audience in bubbles. So a lot to expect from 2021. Thank you so much for allowing me to talk, and happy to answer any questions afterwards if we don't have any time now.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, Helena. That was just so incredibly interesting. I was like finding myself taking notes or doing screenshots. It's such good data, such good info, and such a great overview, you know, about our global markets and understanding that better. And so thank you. Really honored to have you here. I'm just, and thank you for, you know, representing WIM UK.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
And Jenny, thank you so much. And I'll just do a quick shout out as we move on in our roundtable here, but that WIM UK, if anybody is here or is interested in joining the UK chapter, you know, go to womeninmusic.org. You know, feel free to click on, you know, join, become a member, click on that box. If you have friends in the UK and you want to let them know about it, please do alert them about it all. And you can find more information on our website on how to join. But Women in Music UK is launching and you know, growing. So we invite you all to do that. Okay, so now we are going to turn to the fabulous Women in Music South Africa. Very, very excited that WIM SA has launched as of this past fall. And I'd like to introduce you to Tumi Bogapi. And Tumi is our chair of WIM South Africa. So Tumi, take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself as well as about the chapter.
Thanks, Nita, for that. Sure, Helena, thank you so much. Like, that was so insightful. Hello to everyone. My name is Tumi Bogapi, and I'm chapter chair of WIM South Africa, and I work for SAMRO, which stands for South African Music Rights Organization, and we are one of the oldest PROs in Africa. WIM South Africa launched in last year, August, in the midst of, you know, the global pandemic, because we found ourselves needing to focus on creating a platform to, you know, assist women in the music industry to flourish and also provide spaces that encourage us to be ourselves. We've identified that areas that require attention for our market are such as, you know, mentorship, more representation in executive positions, more involvement in music production, more representation on the charts. We still need to also deal with, you know, gender pay gap as well, and also just providing accessible education on copyright, royalty streams, and the entire ecosystem and value chain. So basically, we want to level the playing field by including women in these conversations and provide platforms where our voices can be heard. So I'll just take you on just, an overview of where we come from as an industry. So from the 1970s, we had women such as Miriam Makeba, Letambulu, and Dorothy Masuku dominating the charts with songs that spoke about struggles entrenched by the apartheid system. And these songs gave hope and manifested the liberation of Black people in South Africa. These women not only performed their songs, but they also composed their music by writing their own lyrics and melodies, even though this field was dominated by men. So they were basically a force to be reckoned with. Sad to say, the majority of females at the time, or female artists at the time, were not educated, about copyright, and therefore some of them were not even credited, even if they were songwriters or contributed in terms of writing music. So they were not credited accordingly. And some even signed agreements that were not in their favor and giving, their rights away for lack of copyright without actually understanding what they're getting themselves into. And unfortunately, also in the 1990s era to the 2000s, we saw a trend of female artists who were affiliated with record label execs, romantically and otherwise. And that seemed to be seen as a template for women or female artists to break out and be successful. But fast forward to current times, which is very exciting. Where we are now, we have artists such as Shoma Jozi, Busiswa, leading the Gqom genre, Moonchild Sanali, who has created her own genre known as future ghetto punk. We have Shasha doing the most in the Amapiano genre, and she also just got her own BET award recently. We also have Shekinah winning hearts with her soulful voice and creating work for female artists through her female festival called Rose Fest. These artists are carving their own lane, in their own terms, and proving that female artists can lead the way. South Africa is still unique though, in that huge percentages of TV, radio, and digital revenue is still being distributed to international artists, songwriters, publishers, and labels. This is due to the local content quota being 40% local content for public broadcasters. However, according to Radio Monitor, its spins charts of 200 songs for the period between March 20th and April 20th last year shows only 47 local songs appearing in the top 100, while only 6 local artists' names made it into the top 20. This has proved to be the biggest challenge for local artists to be able to earn from royalties, especially during the pandemic, where there is little to none live performance revenues. Our data at SEMRO shows that while we also saw a lot of artists looking to marketing their music on digital platforms and performing online, digital revenues are still minimal for local artists, as it is largely based on number of views and streams. Now, this is a huge challenge in South Africa because internet data, Wi-Fi is still expensive and not easily accessible to the larger South African audience due to the economic inequalities. Therefore, this makes it difficult for artists and musicians and basically people that are involved in the music business to invest in quality online content. Our hope is that our government can develop legislative frameworks to lower internet data costs and improve the internet quality for all. So hopefully we'll get there at some point. I'd like to hand over to my teammate and friend Mina Leng. I hope she's still here because she's having power outages where she is. Mina Leng, are you here?
I am here. Hi, everyone.
Great.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Good evening from South Africa, but it's afternoon for you. My name is Maneleng Mapike, and I'm an attorney and one of the founding members of WIM South Africa. So I run my own legal consultancy for the creative industries in South Africa. So I just wanted to give more of a, exciting news of the positive strides that we have made and the landscape in South Africa for women in music. And I think as a starting point, the biggest platforms that have actually contributed to a rise and us seeing a rise in a lot of women actually taking the reins in the music industry has been the social media platforms and the DSPs. From our perspective, there's been, the 2019-2020 calendar year, there was, one particular artist who broke out in the industry as a dancer from posting dance videos on her social media platforms and ended up being one of the Amapiano singers, and her name is Gamompela. In addition to that, Apple Music having spotlight and playlisting a lot of our local artists in the African playlist has also created and contributed to the growth of women in music in South Africa, especially from a performing artist perspective. And and one of the other important factors from our landscape is that the majority of successful vocal house songs have women vocalists lending their voices and their writing skills. We've got the likes of Msaki, the likes of Busi, Notende, Tiwe, the list is endless in that regard. So we do have a lot of forces in the industry. However, the force is always attached to either a male DJ or a male producer. And for the most part, most of them are not on their own. I mean, the likes of Yomsaki, the likes of Zoe Mudige, the likes of Notende Tiwe, they have broken out and they are creating their own lanes and carving their own lanes and involved beyond just being on, the front end. They're also involved in the back end, running independent publisher companies, running, organizations similar to the WIM model, just to educate and, create platforms for up and coming singers in particular, where they do the showcases for women, so we do have some kind of a light in that regard. And as well, there's a lot of new up and coming artists and who have, become a force in the previous year, the likes of Azana, Nomcebo Zikode. I mean, most of you probably know the Jerusalem song by Master KG. She's the vocalist on there. There's Ritabile Rolene, D Koala, one of the, the foremost breakthrough hip hop acts in the country, Buhle, Joda Khosi, there's a whole lot of them. And they each contributing, in their own right, as contributing to other people's music or doing things on their own. So we're seeing an increase and a rise in women releasing music and actually pushing their own music. And the interesting thing, Dumi mentioned, radio monitoring. In the last year, 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021, we saw 2 women DJs leading the pack in terms of their songs being number 1. 2019, 2020 was DJ Zinhle, and 2020, 2021 is another DJ called Durban Gogo. And so, I mean, I've spoken about the newcomers, the up and coming artists, and Dumi has touched on Busiswa and Moonchild Saneli. And these are people who are actually established in the industry, and they've had some great successes featuring on Black is King by Beyonce in the song My Power. Moonchild as well, a great achievement for her is recently she collaborated with the Gorillaz on one of their songs. So she features on their song. We've got Shoma Josie, who Dumi also mentioned. She had a breakout song called John Cena, which led her to performing on the Kelly Clarkson show. And her song was all over the African continent and various pockets of the world. Were also listening to that, and that also led to her signing to Epic Records in the US. So ordinarily how it normally works from a South African context is that most artists would sign to an international label, but under the South African banner. So it would never be actually signing directly with the major label in the US or in the UK. So in this regard, she signed directly to Epic Records, which is a huge feat for her. And we also have Elaine, and Elaine's story is actually quite an amazing one. She broke out in 2019, breaking out in 2019, she broke all the charts. Last year, the Spotify charts report that came out, she was one of the only women who featured on that list from a local South African perspective as a number 6. She was the most streamed. However, 2 of her songs, one being number 1, You're the One, was was #1 on the local charts. So we are making those strides. And I mean, on the back of her success, Elaine has signed to Columbia Records, also direct deal with the US. So it is quite a great growth from that perspective, from our music industry. And behind the scenes, it's still a very tricky landscape to navigate. We don't have enough of the data. We don't know who all the people are. And this is something that as WIM South Africa, we've decided that we want to embark on that journey to determine and establish who the women are that are in the forefront of the music industry from an industry executive perspective, instead of just being on the forefront, being the performers. And I mean, recently Universal Music appointed Eloise Kelly as their COO, and she's COO for the Sub-Sahara region, which is quite a big role that she's playing. And in addition to that, we've got only one co-founder of an independent record label that's doing fundamentally well, called Fifth Season, and that's co-owned by Nanelle Mousson. And under their label, they've got one of the biggest musicians in the soul genre, Amufaku, who's signed onto there. And I've mentioned Msaki. Msaki is a curator of music. She runs a publishing company. She's a force to be reckoned with in the industry. So we are growing, we are getting there. There is a lot of room for growth, especially independently as women. As I mentioned before, most of the success is always attached to either a male producer or another male artist or a male DJ. So we're looking to get to a point where women can stand on their own feet. Your Busiswas, your Moonchild, your Shoma Josies, your Elaine, they're proving that it's possible and it can be done. So we're looking forward to, greater input, and we're happy with, the stats that Helena shared, that in the past 2 weeks, they've had, 11% of the US audience actually listening to Afropop, which is a good sign for us. And we hope, in the coming years, it will reach your 20% and reach those lower end and get to the 50%, of listening to Afropop and listening to African music. So thanks, Nita. That's all from me.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you so much, Mana. I loved hearing all the names of all the great artists. I know I'm a new fan of Shasha, and I've been really digging some of the music there I'm hearing from her lately. So very, very cool. Thank you, Tumi and Mana. Thank you so much for all your work too in developing your chapter. We may have some questions for you, so definitely hang out so we can get to the Q&A later. I'd love to just sort of let everybody know, again, if you're interested in finding out more about WIM South Africa and becoming a member. If you're not a member, if you have friends in South Africa who you think should be members, feel free to share the information from our website at womeninmusic.org with them. But real quick, Tumi, you guys have an Instagram account, right? Is that a good place where people can find out about your webinars if they want to tune into your exact programming?
Yes, sure. Sorry, I actually forgot to mention that. So we've got our social media platforms. You can find us on WIM South Africa, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn. But our most active account is definitely our Instagram account.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Exciting. Great. So we're going back around the table and we're going to go to Canada. Sam Slattery. Hello, my dear. So I've known Sam for a while, and Sam is the founder and head of Women in Music Canada, president for many years. And Sam, tell us about yourself and tell us a little bit about WIM Canada and how things are going there.
Hello. So thank you for inviting us. It's great to see you, Nita, and it's great to meet everyone. So I'll just give you a little high-level glimpse of Women in Music Canada, and we'll go from there if there's any questions. So our chapter was established in 2014. We are obviously nationally serving, registered nonprofit. Pleased to confirm we're one of the largest music industry associations in the country, if not the largest. So really robust membership, lots of interest and enthusiasm. Our headquarters are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee and Wendat peoples. So it's traditional in Canada that all of our associations acknowledge our land treaties. Where should I go from here? Okay, sorry, I have notes in front of me. In spite of having some wonderful social infrastructures, as many of you know, in Canada, we have 12 months paid maternity leave, equal pay legislation, and really, really robust government grant system for our culture sectors. We're still falling woefully short in all things gender and diversity representation in the music industry. So I'll just give you sort of a snapshot. We are known to be kind of the research folk. We do a lot of research within women in music. So a couple stats just for Canada. So only 9% of company heads in Canada in the music industry are women. Female employees earn about 24% less than the average music company employee. And we receive less than 10% of grant funding at the entrepreneur level. And as most of us have experienced, COVID-19 has had a specifically hard impact on our industry. So women in particular, obviously, and I apologize in advance because I've bribed my two to stay upstairs, but a lot of us are homeschooling. We've been shut down for a while. There's increased domestic violence. So there's all sorts of other social challenges that we, have to be mindful of when we're trying to advance things in our industry. Our most recent research was really fascinating because it spoke to specifically female leadership and greater return on investment. It was based on a UN study. So just to sort of share this with everyone, a 10% increase in gender diversity of leadership leads to a 17.9% increase in revenue per employee and a 27.5% increase in live performance sales. So just like as a snapshot. So one of the things I talk about is if you don't want to consider, diversity for obvious reasons, whether it's creative or social, we can talk about money too, because women are fantastic for business. So that's something that we speak to quite a bit. As far as what we've got coming up, we have another research project, surprisingly, advancing opportunity for women and girls. So we're really trying to look at what those systemic challenges are as to why that representation is low. We are launching in the coming weeks a Women in Music Canada database. So it is a searchable, self-administering database where if you play cello, if you are an attorney, anywhere in Canada, you input your data. And therefore, if anyone in the industry is looking for these roles, whether it's on a panel, whether it's on a board, whether it's for employment or a tour, there's now going to be one centralized place where everyone can access that. It's tricky in Canada. Obviously, we're a really big country, very small population, so it's very spread out. So this is something that's really helpful to try to connect all of our different regions. We have quite a bit going on for International Women's Day. We have speakers, training. We're doing board training, business training, showcases, and loads more. So stay tuned. Our Instas and so forth, I can share in the chat. We're also going to be doing another Entrepreneur Accelerator this year. It's really key for us to make sure we're supporting women in business and trying to grow that. And we're also have a songwriter camp coming up in the spring as well. So that's sort of a little snapshot of Canada and what we're up to. If anyone has any questions, I will stick around.
Lovely. Thanks, Sam. It is amazing with WIM Canada that you guys have had a chance to have some data studies done. And that's been just so crucial to so much of this, hasn't it? Have you found the use of data to be impactful in terms of, getting further funding or, being able to help push out the mission and the message a bit better?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to be clear about where the challenges sit. So it's been great to give us a bit of a roadmap as to, how do we really move the needle? I'd say in the past 2-3 years, there's been incredible change at the board level. So there's a lot more board diversity. As far as leadership, that's the challenge. There's very, very few female leaders of the big organizations here. And so hence why a lot of our focus has been on entrepreneurial side of things to try to encourage, female-owned businesses to thrive. So it's definitely given us a roadmap with the research. It was, let's see if there's a problem. Canada likes to be very self-congratulatory and think we're very woke, but the reality is our numbers are actually worse than a lot of our colleagues globally. So whether it's the US or the UK, we're falling behind. So, and strangely, so it's about looking at why is that the case, and then how do we really try to address some solutions. So I'm slightly more academic and nerdy than some of the other chapters potentially, but it's been helpful to develop our programs and work out where we go from here.
Yeah, Thank you for that. And then I, you know, in that sense, I look at WIM Canada as a role model of sorts, right? About for our other chapters in terms of, you know, sort of looking at how you've done some data studies and how you've grown out your community out there. So
Yeah.
I always encourage everybody else, you know, talk to Sam. All our other
research. I'm your girl. I am your girl. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thanks for being here.
I
So
appreciate
great
it.
to have you. Now we turn to WIM Romania. So we have the fabulous Karina Sava. I've had the honor of going to Romania and participating in a conference that she helps put together called Mastering Music Business. And there's some amazing women in that market there, and it's been a real joy. And so welcome, Karina. Tell us about yourself and about Romania and the music market there, whatever you want to tell us.
Thank you for having me, first of all. So I'm Karina Sava. I'm an artist manager. I've been a manager for the past 12 years. I've been managing pop rock bands, very successful artists here in Romania. I recently, last year, launched my own company, artist management and brand partnership for music projects and artists. I'm also the conference program manager and one of the founders of Mastering the Music Business, the main music business conference here in Romania. This year we will have our 6th edition of the conference. I'm also the chair of Women in Music Romania and the vice president of Romanian Artists Worldwide Association. First of all, I don't know how many of you know about Romania. We are a small, we say small country, but we're on the 10th place when it comes to population in Europe, and the 12th place when it comes to area in Europe. We're in Eastern Europe, one of the ex-communist countries. Why I'm saying that I usually like to mention that we are an ex-communist countries when we talk about women, because what's interesting about Romania is that we have the narrowest gender pay gap in Europe. It's 3%. When you compare it to the average gender pay gap, which is 14.8%, and when you compare it to Estonia, the lowest at 22.7%. That's very interesting to see. You would say that we're very advanced when it comes to empowering women. Not really. I think this is one of the reminiscence of the communist era, when women and men were equal and they were supposed to work the same way and get paid. It's interesting to see that it would have been interesting to have somebody from Estonia, because though they have the largest, the biggest pay gap between women and men, Estonia is the first country led by women. I mean, they have both president and prime minister women right now, and I think this is kind of amazing. When it comes to the music landscape in Romania, we have some very powerful women artists. Superstars here in Romania. We have some international artists who managed to break the borders. We have, when we look at the charts for last year in Romania, in top 10 we had 4 songs by women artists, lead artists, and 4 songs that featured artists. The main artist was a male or a male band, but they featured female artists. So there are some powerhouse names. But unfortunately, when we look behind the scenes, things are not that great. They look great at first sight, but when you take I don't know, when you look deeper, they're not that great. For example, when we look at songwriters and music producers, there are some songwriters, female songwriters, doing very well, mostly when it comes to artists, songwriter, those that are also performing their music. We don't really have any female music producer, none. I mean, this is one of the areas where we feel like we have to work a lot, and also to showcase more female songwriters. When we look at labels, we have three of the main labels here in Romania, one of the majors, Universal Music, and two of the biggest, though not major labels. They are led by women CEOs, but they represent a very small percentage when we look at the overall ecosystem of Romanian labels. They seem to be the exception. They are very powerful, they are very good at their jobs, but they are the exception, not the rule. The same can be said by about the live industry, where only a handful of women are managing or representing as agents major artists in Romania. Most of them are working for men. When it comes to the live industry, again, the situation is very similar. When you think about it, you have top of mind 3 or 4 names of very powerful women that are leading, that are promoters or working for festivals, but they are again the exception. Most of the powerful names in the live industry are men, unfortunately. So what's very interesting, I think, I don't know if the situation is similar in other countries, but what we realized in Romania is that many of the successful women artists in Romania are being represented as managers by their husbands or fathers. We actually even have one of the big names who used to be represented by her father, and then her husband, when she got married, took over. This is very interesting. And there are some examples, but not that many, of men artists being represented by their mothers or wives. So what we are doing in Romania to try to empower women and to balance the situation a little bit. First thing first, we launched Women in Music Romania in 2019. We had Nita here at Mastering the Music Business. At Mastering the Music Business, we try to have panels when we discuss the situation, when we discuss about women in the industry, and try to maybe find solutions. We also try to pay attention to a gender balance when it comes to women speakers, when it comes to artists that are being booked at our showcase. We are not at a 50-50 level right now, but we are aiming to get there. We are also doing a mentoring program for women entrepreneurs in the music industry. This is something that we will be launching this year. We will have 10 powerful women from the music industry with a lot of experience, and they will become the mentors for 10 young females. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to learn from and to work with global women in PR, because they are more experienced than us. They have a strong alliance here in Romania, but also internationally. And we try to kind of stay together, because these two industries here in Romania are very connected. The world of communications into companies, marketing, and PR and advertising agencies, and the music industry. So this is, I don't know, a summary about how things look like here in Romania. If you have any questions, I'm here. Nita, back to you.
Yes, Thank you so much, Karina. That is so good, and it's so interesting to hear about your market there. Thank you so much. We just have a short bit of time here, and I want to get to a couple of the questions. Again, if you do have questions, put them in the Q&A. So there is a question which I think came up during when we were speaking to Tumi and Mana in South Africa. But if anyone wants to jump in, they can hear of our speakers. What kind of data or story do global markets look at most when deciding on featuring a US artist on their platform? If anyone has any insight on that amongst our speakers, feel free to jump in, turn on your cameras. What data or story do global markets look at? I mean, if you know your own market, what do you think they're looking at when deciding whether they want to feature a US artist? Anyone? Karina, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was thinking that, in Romania, American artists are being seen very well. I mean, when you see US near an artist, they already have a big advantage because everybody wants to break, of course, in the US, and they feel like if they bring in an American artist as a featuring artist for a Romanian artist, for example, they already they stand a chance. And also there are so many songs in English here in Romania, so it's also an advantage to have an American artist. I don't think they are looking precisely at any kind of numbers because, of course, they have a look at social media and streaming. But when it comes to Romania, YouTube is the biggest platform when it comes to streaming. So it's bigger than Spotify and Apple and any other platform. So I don't think there is any specific stats that they are searching for.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that input. I guess we'll go into so much for that. Yeah. Did someone else turn on their camera for a moment? I just want to double check on this before. Tumi. Yeah.
I did. I just wanted to give a South African perspective. I think when it comes to our market, we already have, for instance, with US charts, that's what would be playing mostly on our public radio stations and also on our music channels as well on TV. So, normally it's based on those charts. But obviously for us, it is difficult to get local artists to collaborate with, big charting artists. I think normally it's the other way around where, the artists are looking for some new sound in South Africa or Afropop, whatever the reason might be, and they would want to then collaborate with our local artists to get the market as well and obviously that new sound.
Right. Well, thank you for that feedback. Just for time, I'm going to move on to that next question. Someone did ask about, is there any data about how women are doing with the Latin music market? I am not aware of that. And I know I've been speaking to women in certain countries. We have a WIM Colombia chapter, talking to some women in Mexico, our WIM Miami chapter is extremely active and of course has been trying to look at Latin music worldwide and pull some data together. If any of my colleagues here have any information, feel free to let us know either on camera or in the chat about that question, because it is something that I think as women in music, we need to sort of help see if we can support some data to come around there. And I do believe some of our leadership at the WIM Miami chapter have been very interested in looking at that a bit closer and looking to see if we can collect that data. So it's in the works, hopefully, coming soon. So the next question was, oh, did it just disappear? 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, what?
Sorry, Nita, I just answered it live,
Okay.
Not realizing that it was Jen probably asking so that we could inform our viewers about how to start a global chapter if you're interested in starting in a new market. What do you do?
And so what do you do? There is on our website. I mean, Nicole, do you want to go for it since we had you? No. So on our website, we have a form, an application. So go to womeninmusic.org and you'll find it in there about how to the form to fill out if you're interested in starting a new chapter. And fill that out. We then put it into a lovely spreadsheet where we take a look and try to gather the various folks from the different markets and start talking to folks. I'm always happy to speak directly on things, but that's probably, the first stop is get onto our website and fill out that form. If you have questions from there, feel free to email me at Neeta, N-E-E-T-A, at womeninmusic.org. I'll put it in the chat as well. And okay, I thought Jen had another question that I thought I saw in there. Q&A, but never mind, we're good. So I am going to take, since we're at time right now, I want to thank all of our amazing leadership around the world for participating in this. We are just so very honored to be, I love working with you ladies and hope to do so much more in the future as we figure out our initiatives and our game plans, work out our mentorship plans, work out workplace initiatives and all sorts of other good stuff. So everyone, thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you on other sessions throughout our 3-day Women in Music Summit today, tomorrow, and Friday. So please do engage and register in for all of our different sessions. Thank you so much. But Jenny, Helena, Karina, Manaling, Tumi, Sam, she might have dropped off. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us and goodbye, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.